From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin energy.
The vitamins.
Energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, we talk about the future. A 12-team playoff, first round bye. How pivotal will it be to win the conference this year? A thorough recruiting recap from Michael Langston after 19 official visitors touchdown in Tallahassee. And we talk some baseball recruiting as well. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code eludes me. Corey, assist, please.
Warchant BOGO.
My man. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code Warchant BOGO. Warchant BOGO. Buy one, get one free when you visit VitaminEnergy.com. World's first clinically tested, clinically proven energy shot, again, to enhance not only your energy levels, obviously, because there's 260 milligrams of all-natural caffeine. Also, if you get the extra strength formula, by the way, there's a little green tea extract added in there as well. Get you a little more juice. But not only helping out with the energy, obviously, but the focus, the mood, the workout, hydration, the burner. Get a little fat burning energy in you. Get you some over at vitaminenergy.com. Again, promo code WarchantBOGO. Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. FSU won. I'm going to keep saying that until somebody tells me that they tried it and it didn't work. FSU 1, Corey, gets you 2 months for $1. Use it, everybody, because that'll take you right up until into kickoff, right? We're like 2 months out, Corey. Oh, my God.
We're getting closer and closer. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. It's heading our way.
Unbelievable. 5-star rating and review as well. Hit the thumbs up. Certainly would appreciate it. Corey, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. We celebrated Brady's birthday this past weekend. He went out with some friends on Thursday, and then I have a buddy who has a boat on Lake Lanier. And we did that Friday. Now, the Clark boys aren't used to being in the sun. So two things happened. Number one, Brady got burned to a crisp on the back of his legs because they were doing tubing.
Oh, yeah.
And he was hanging on with his – you don't think – at least I didn't as a dad. I got the shoulders all nice and covered, but his back of his legs, it didn't even occur to me. So they are fried, not great. His mom's not going to be happy about that. And then, I'll be honest with you, we weren't near a bathroom. We were idling in the water. I was on the boat. I wasn't in the water, but for more than probably 5 minutes the whole day. But, I knew it was going to be another hour before we went back to the dock, and I'm like, hey, let me jump in real quick so I can pee. No other way to pee when you're on a lake.
Yeah.
I jump in feet first, all the way down. Didn't realize I had my glasses on.
Oh.
And when I come up, my glasses are not on my face. And apparently Stephanie told me as I was in midair, Corey, your glasses, but I didn't hear her. And when I came up, she said, where are your glasses? And I said, I think, aren't they on the boat? And so, yeah, I lost a pair of glasses to Lake Lanier, which, if you're going to sacrifice something to that beast, glasses is okay. There's probably a pretty corpse down there at the bottom of that lake now that has glasses on its head. So that was a little disappointing. But otherwise, it was a fun weekend, man.
Good.
Hope you had a fun weekend.
I actually went out. I was social. I met up with our guy Matt Lasser. Had some
okay.
Had some cold ones. Just talked about life and stuff. So that was cool. Got me out the house, man.
Okay, that's good. Good for him.
So yeah, that was good. Otherwise, it's just hot as all Hades, and I've got a stray cat problem. I probably need to actually holler at Stephanie to see if she's got some tips, because I called like a nonprofit, and they really weren't very. I feel like these people like commit their lives to helping out animals, and then I'm like, can you please come help these animals? I'll give you whatever money you want, and they're pretty much like, no, you have to do it. Being me, and I'm like, I don't want to touch these things. So I got to figure out, because there's like 2 stray cats that just sit on my front porch and just constantly sit there. And every time I open the door, they try to like jump into my house. And they're good enough to not actually come into my house, but like it's annoying. Every single time I open the door, I'm like, I almost trip over them because I keep forgetting there's stray cats on my front porch. So Can
you rent a dog? Can you rent a dog for like
a
week?
Yeah. So I've got a Ring doorbell. So I started Googling like on YouTube. I'm like, sounds cats don't like. So I played like some supersonic sounds through my phone to try to pump it outside to my Ring doorbell, but that didn't work either. So we'll see how it goes. But just This is what I get for talking about wanting a cat. Maybe then 2 show up, and I'm like, nope, don't want you guys.
Yeah, apparently you're not a cat guy after all.
No, I'm not. I like the one feral cat that I've had for like 6 months. It just hangs outside and is content with that. I don't want to bring anybody inside my home, so we'll see how it all goes. Fingers crossed, everybody. All right, Corey, we're going to talk about football now.
Okay, all right.
So shout out to everybody. So Corey, it kind of got lost in the the shuffle of us just talking and shooting the breeze the other day, shooting the bull, some might say. This whole new playoff thing, obviously we know what's happening this year. It's 12 teams, so it's a 7+5, 7 at large, 5 conference champions, and then the highest ranked 4 conference champions get a first round bye, which is pretty significant, I would think.
So
yes,
that
Corey?
means only one SEC team gets a bye.
This is correct.
Okay, interesting. All right, I did not know that. All right.
One Big Ten team as well. So you think theoretically here, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12 are in line for that first round bye, and then whoever wins the AAC or the Sun Belt, they're probably that 5th conference champion, and they will either be seeded wherever they're at if they're in the top 12, and if they're not, if they're 18th, and they if it's Tulane and Tulane finishes 18th in the final CFP, they'll become the 12th team in the playoff. So I start looking at this and I'm like, man, like this is kind of cool. Like, now you're really going to be looking at every single game and fighting for seeding and jockeying and just how important it is. And then the more I kind of thought about it, Corey, I just don't know. Maybe you'll take the contrarian outlook to this, but the future's now then, man. Like the season that we've lamented for so long being diluted, it is here. If you're Florida State and you're 9-3 and you're if you're 11-1 ACC team playing against a 9-3 ACC team in Charlotte, it don't matter like how good you've done between August and December. Winning that game is everything. You could be 12-0 and be the ACC number 1 seed playing a 9-3 team in Charlotte. The 9-3 team wins that game, they get the first round bye, and then you're knocked to, I don't know, what would you think, Corey? If you're 12-0, though, if you're 12-0 Florida State and you lose in that game, like, where do you drop? Like, do you become, like, number 6?
Are you trying to get me to speculate about what a committee is going to do?
Touche.
I would say if you're number 3, number 2 or number 3, this is just me spitballing, having no idea because we've never seen this work. I would think if you're 2-3 and you lose a conference championship, if you're number 2 or number 3 in the country, which I think if you're 12-0, even in the ACC, I think you're. What was Florida State going into the Louisville game? 3rd, right?
Yeah.
So I would think you would drop no farther than 8. Okay. So the point being there, you would be hosting a first round game.
Yes.
So
you go from hosting a first round game if you win that game to let's say they are.
No, I'm saying if you win the game, you get the bye.
Yes.
If you lose the game, I still think you're hosting a first round game.
Yes, but then you have to win that game, and then you get probably the number 1 seed if you are the 8th seed.
Yeah.
As AC, you play the 9 seed, and then you have to go play Georgia probably in the Peach Bowl, or maybe the Sugar Bowl.
Hey, Georgia might have a rash of injuries, man. They might not be. Their best days might be behind them. We don't know. But, yes, probably. It's hard to speculate who would be number 1. But, yes, it's going to be a very tough team. Whoever's the number 1 overall seed is going to be a very good team. But, hey, beatable. They're all beatable. So I would it's interesting, though. It's something that I can't wait to actually dive into when we get closer to it, like in November, if Florida State's really in the hunt. Because, I think if you've got 11 or 12 wins, no matter what especially Florida State this first year, if Florida State is in the conversation at all, I think they're going to err on the side of let's get Florida State in. I really do.
Congrats, FSU Twitter. You did your job.
Yeah, I really do. I think after the nonsense of last year, they're going to do everything in their power. If it's close to equal, if Florida State's a top 12 to 14-ish team, they're right on the bubble. They're right on the cusp. They lose that championship game, but that makes them 11-2. I think they're in. Now, I don't think they're hosting, but I think they're in. And I think that if they're 12-0 going into that ACC championship game and they lose to, say, whoever, Clemson, so they went 1-1 against Clemson. Clemson gets the automatic bye, which is interesting. I really didn't know that. That's a game changer.
Yes.
Just winning your so if you're 9-3 and you, like you said, you're 9-3 and you win, You get a bye. That's a huge deal. But either way, so say you don't. You're 12-0. You lose to that 9-3 team. I think they will err on the side of let's take care of Florida State and give them a home playoff game. That could be very naive of me, but I just think that's the reality. I think there will be a little bit of that comes into play where they'll feel like they need to take care of Florida State because of the snub from the year before. But it's all really interesting, and it's all really interesting when it comes to like positioning and how you think about certain games and how important certain games become. Like theoretically, again, this is something that's going to be a part of our lives for the foreseeable future. Let's say Florida State is 11-0 going into the Florida game, and they have a bunch of injuries. Clearly, you want to beat Florida. You absolutely want to beat Florida. But if you're 11-0 going into that game and your quarterback is at 4, let's say DJ is really banged up. He's got a knee that needs some rest. And you've got a couple of linemen that absolutely need a rest. Well, let's be honest, man. The more important game is the game the following week.
It is.
So you rest. If there's a bye, if there is a playoff bye on the table the following week, that Florida game becomes so much more inconsequential. You want to win the game. You want to rule the state. You want to go undefeated. I get all that. But not at the expense of losing the following week.
But
you know what I mean? Like, so you can go 11-1, but as long as you win the following week in Charlotte, you're hosting. You're not hosting, get the bye.
Well, that's the thing, though, Corey. I mean, you're 10 and what did you say? 10-1.
I said 11-0.
11-0. Man, but
the thinking being, even if you lose those next two games at 11-2, you're probably in. But it's not a definite. You're right. There's some risk there.
Yeah, I just don't think. I mean, it would have to be like a really, I don't know. Maybe it's one of those like concussion things coming into play where it's like, all right, we don't want to push the kid this week, so we could sit him against Florida. But I just don't know if any, not especially this staff. I don't know how many staffs in America would look at the long game of like, all right, we can maybe take the foot off the throttle in this game against our chief rival. That's another thing too, though, Corey. It's like if you're Florida State, let's say you're like, would you rather be 9-3 Florida State, where like you've lost to Clemson, you've lost to Miami, you lost to Florida, but you end up winning the ACC championship game and making it to the playoff, you know? But then maybe you go one and you lose your game and you lose the game that you get played slotted to in the playoff, or do you want to be? Would you rather be 12-1 and not have that first round bye, and your only loss was like a fluke game, like maybe Miami, but then you got revenge on them, or you lost to Clemson, but you got revenge on them?
Yeah, my first instinct is you absolutely want to get the bye. Like the rivalry games become less and less important if your overall goal is a national championship, and you don't necessarily have to win those rivalry games to get there. You know, for our whole lives, for Florida State to win a national championship, they almost always had to beat Florida and Miami. It was just a natural course of things. That's not necessarily the case anymore. If you can get to the ACC championship game and win it, who cares if you lose to them if the end game is winning the national championship, and this gives you a better avenue to do it. You get a bye. So you only have to win, I don't know the math, 2 games instead of 3 or 3 games instead of 4, whatever it is.
You have to win. If you get a bye, you win 3 games, you're a national champion.
Yeah, 3 games instead of 4. So it's easier. But what I was going to say is, man, it sure would be cool to host a playoff game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, that's a really cool thought, to think of Doak Campbell Stadium hosting a playoff game. So that would be cool, too. Like, you don't want it to be at the expense of actually being able to win a national championship. Like, again, you'd rather play 3 games than 4. But if you're not going to win the national championship, and of course we don't know this till after the fact, but if you're not really quite good enough to win a national championship, I think a home playoff game is really neat. As opposed to going into a neutral site and losing that first game. A home playoff game is really neat. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the honest, realistic answer is, who cares if you lose to Miami, Clemson, and Florida if you're in the playoff?
Yep.
You still got there.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's cool to beat your rivals, and if you beat those rivals and lose in the championship game of your conference, you're still hosting a home playoff game. So would you rather beat Florida and Miami and have a home playoff game, or would you rather lose to both of them, get a bye, but your first playoff game is in Arizona or Southern Cal or even New Orleans? I don't know. I think it. You know, that's something you want to weigh. I'm really looking forward to a home playoff game if that happens.
Yep, man.
Or even going on the road for a playoff game. That's neat, man. That's cool. That's what kind of football's supposed to be.
I think maybe to a small degree, 2005 is kind of maybe a litmus test of this because you did beat Miami in the opener. Imagine
that team with Weatherford at the helm getting a bye.
They would have.
I know. They're in the top 8 of the country, man. They're in the bye. They only got to win 3 times. They're national champs.
I just think about how miserable that season felt because they had a 4 or 5 game losing streak going into
at the end of the season. They were at the end of the season they were horrible. Yeah,
they're absolutely depleted with injuries. But like you rally and you win, and it was the first ever ACC championship game. And like it really was cool, and it helped you forget how horrible the last month was before that. So, we can sit here and project out what feelings are going to be like, and it's that thing that you and Jeff and I would always talk about on headlines, where you go into a season like, all right, 10-2, I'm totally fine with that, and you say that in August, but then when those losses happen, things kind of change with your calculus. But yeah, I mean, if they win the conference, you're like, well, all right, whatever. Like, because Florida, guess what? Even if you did beat us, like you're probably not in the playoff, though. I can almost say that confidently.
Yeah.
I don't think Florida's making the playoff. So you are. So I mean, that ultimately is what matters. And maybe we'll figure out a way to we'll figure out a way to reconcile our feelings when it comes to rivalry games when we realize we're still playing when it matters.
And I think we all understand there's absolutely no chance. I don't know if there's ever been a year. Maybe there's been a year. I'm trying to think. It's an obvious one where Florida State could lose to Florida and still win a national championship because it's always so late in the season, and because you're in the ACC and you're playing quote unquote an SEC power. If you can beat that SEC power, it helps you. And Florida State, every time they've contended or won a national championship, obviously they've beaten Florida. So it's a weird world to live in.
In Gainesville, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, well, true. But it's a weird world to live in where the Florida game loses significance. But in reality, if you're undefeated going into the Florida game, it does not really matter to getting to the playoff. You'd have to win the following week to make sure, but you can lose the Florida game and still absolutely control your own destiny. You can still absolutely have a first-round bye. That has never been the case where you could go and lose to Florida at the end of the year and control your own destiny. At that point, your championship aspirations are almost over. So it's a new world to live in, and it also there is a chance, man. Just because this is what happens to college football, all the things we love and that are sacred end up getting soiled and ruined because of Greg Sankey and the like. There is a chance that because of this, because as we see this unfold, and you're hearing it here first, folks. Maybe not. Maybe other people have written or said this. As we see how this materializes and manifests itself, this 12-team playoff, what it looks like in practice and not just theory, there is a chance 2, 3, 4 years from now they move Florida to the first game of the year. There just is a chance. If these last games before the conference championship games become completely insignificant in the grand scheme of trying to get to the national playoff, then what's the point of having such a hard game right before the game that matters most?
I would like to see almost like conference exclusive games that last month of the season. That probably makes things more interesting, right? To try to jockey for position because no one's got divisions any longer. So it's all about winning that conference. So if your last 4 games are intra-conference games, that I think that probably creates more drama than it does playing what we've kind of pointed out the fact would not have nearly as much juice any longer like a Florida State-Florida game.
Well, except if the fact that Florida State is in the conference with Florida.
Ooh, yeah.
Then you're back to where that would be the last game of the conference season. Just throwing that out there, gang. Just throwing it out there.
Let me see where we're at in the show. I did want to pivot to something. I'll save that thought for another day. We'll keep going on the football, though. Phil Steele, Corey, writes a very comprehensive magazine that I'm sure you're aware of. Everybody's aware of. So he's got his expected order of finish for all like the Power 5, or most of the Power 5 conference, I think, has been released. Or I think that we might have some sort of partnership with On3 with him where we've maybe gotten a sneak peek. I don't even know if it's on the bookshelves yet. But it looks like he's got the ACC very, very jammed up. It's almost like he's got tiers, more so than an expected order of finish, but it is indeed an expected order of finish. The bottom is Duke, 17th, followed by Stanford, UVA. He's got a 3-way tie at 12th, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Boston College, Georgia Tech and Pitt in a tie for 10th, Cal 9th, UNC 8th. And then the other teams are kind of matched up and clustered up here, Corey. So he's got a second tier of teams that he thinks will tie for fourth in SMU, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and NC State.
All right. Okay.
Meanwhile, he sees a three-way tie, which is not going to happen. And I wish I could go back and give everybody their time back in their lives to spend with their loved ones in the time that we spent last year talking about what happens if there's a three-way tie in the ACC. Like, what's going to happen if North Carolina and Louisville and we're tied? And blah, blah, blah. It didn't happen. It's never going to happen, ever.
Well, don't say that.
It's just
That
it's not going to.
It could happen. It won't happen with 3 undefeated teams. But you could have 3 teams that don't play each other that finish at 6-2. Anyway, go ahead.
Clemson, Florida State, Miami tie for first, he thinks.
All right. That seems about fair, right?
Yeah.
I would say when you look at that, though, so Florida State obviously plays those other 2 teams, Clemson and Miami. They also play SMU, who he has tied for fourth. He has Cal 9th, Georgia Tech 10th. Who are the other teams that they play Duke this year, right?
Yeah, they like a Friday night game. Don't they have Carolina, North Carolina, or no?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're 8th. So.
Okay, all right. So it seems like you're playing probably the 2 best other teams. I don't know if Clemson and Miami play this year. I should. I don't know if they play each other this year.
So.
But yeah, so it's going to be a little difficult, man. It's not an easy schedule. Memphis is not an easy game for a non-conference game in September. Those are supposed to be cakewalks. That ain't a cakewalk. That's not a guarantee. Memphis is a bowl team and probably a 9 or 10-win team. So that ain't easy, and they're going to be very, very motivated. So that's gonna be a hard game probably. I think at SMU is going to be a not easy game. I think, and when I say not easy, let's just say I'm talking the point spread less than 10 points. And in my opinion, if the point spread is less than 10 points, somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 points, a couple of plays you lose. Like that's not a blowout. A 7 or 10 point spread means it's going to be a game in the fourth quarter, and you've got that with absolutely with Memphis, SMU, Miami, Clemson, maybe Georgia Tech. I don't know what the spread is for Georgia Tech, but a neutral site game against a team that could run the ball really well. Like, it's not Notre Dame. Obviously, will be within that those parameters. So this is not a schedule where you're expecting a lot of blowouts, right? You're expecting a lot of close games. I think a lot of like fourth quarter games anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if Florida State is going to be as vastly talented, like superiorly talented this year than like last year. We knew, like, right, like we kind of projected out the fact that we're like, there's maybe Clemson's the only team outside of playing LSU in that opener that has comparable talent to you, but otherwise you have vastly superior talent than everybody you're playing. I just don't. Maybe we feel different after week 4 or 5 of seeing them rack up some wins, but right now I don't. I still feel like looking at Florida State's schedule, you have to squint and say things like, well, just it's really hard to go undefeated to say that they're not going to win every single game, because when you look at it, you still feel like they do have more talent, but it's not overwhelmingly
right.
So the way it was last year.
Yeah. So again, that's why I think this season, it would be awesome if they went on a run and they're better than I even think they're going to be, and they win a national championship. I think the goal is the playoff. Get in there by hook or crook, however you can get in there, and see what happens. I think being a playoff contender is a great step for this program. Like, you lost so much talent from last year, and if you can follow that up with being in the conversation, having a chance the last 2 games of the season to be in the playoff, okay, man, you have to me, in my opinion, and how I view sports and just competition in general in the building of programs, if you're back in contention for a playoff spot the year after you lost 10 draft picks, well, you're established now. You're not going anywhere. You're here to stay. It's the same thing with baseball, the FSU baseball team going into next year. If they can be in contention for a top 8 national seed after losing everything they're about to lose off this current team, man, okay, Link, you've established it. You're here. You are that superpower. You're back to being a superpower, and I feel like that's it's a really important season in that aspect. None of us are expecting it to be 13-0 again after losing all they have. But if there should be a good football team again, and it's a good program, and they have talent. They should be a top 15, 10 caliber team all season long.
Agreed. Yeah. Right now, lines go between 12.5 and 13 out there
for Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, not 20, not 30. That's a losable game. my point is there's a lot of losable games, and in hindsight, looking back at last year, I don't know how many games you'd say were losable. 4 maybe? And they just happened to win them all. You could say the Miami game was losable because it was right there at the end of the game. They were driving down the field to perhaps take the lead. Florida was losable, but that was without Jordan Travis. I don't think that was losable with Jordan Travis. So let's scrape that one. Let's scrape Louisville. So of the 10 games that Jordan Travis played, obviously
I really only think LSU and Clemson were. I mean, Miami didn't have a quarterback.
Well,
I mean,
Boston College turned out to be one. You know.
I know, but going into it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But in hindsight, when we look back in hindsight,
right.
Boston College was losable. Pitt was absolutely losable. If Cypress doesn't knock the ball out of that kid's hand at the half-yard line, who knows how that game goes. But it was also losable because of the injuries. That was crazy. They had no wide receivers. But Miami, LSU, maybe I guess we say wasn't losable in hindsight. But Miami was, Clemson was, Boston College was. Duke, you were trailing, I think, in the fourth quarter. I think. It was even close. So that, maybe that goes a certain way. Maybe what's his name? If he's fully healthy, you lose that game. So there were more losable games than we maybe give credit for. So I don't know. I think that just get used to a lot of hand-wringing in the fourth quarter, wondering, man, why aren't they putting this team away? It's like, well, last year's team didn't really put a ton of teams away until the fourth quarter. Like the Virginia Tech game. Weren't they up like 22-0, and the next thing you know, it's 22-17 in the second half?
I'm not discounting what you're saying, but I personally never felt threatened. Like I'm not on the field taking
right, but it wasn't like the 13 team or the 90s teams where it's like, okay, it's 46-0. This thing's over. Let's see how the backups look. Like there were a lot of games where it was still felt a little dicey in the second half, and that's going to be the case, I think, for the vast majority of this season, and probably just how college football is, man. It's just how college football is. If you play poorly, you can lose to almost anybody on your schedule. Now, if both teams play at their ceiling, Florida State's going to win every game they play. But if that doesn't happen a lot. So, again, I'll use Georgia as an example. Georgia's been awesome the last 5 years, but they've had plenty of hiccups where they almost lost or should have lost or at least could have lost. They probably have one a month, not one a week, but that's just how football is now. We're away from the games, the days of you just roll over everybody but one or two teams. The point being, Florida State has to play well to get to where they want to go, and that's a no-duh statement. But they're going to have to play well to win these games, and if they win 11 games, they're going to be in the playoff. The 10 games maybe, 11 games to me seems definite. 12 games seems like a home game or an automatic bye, which is cool. What a time to be alive. But what I wanted to the point I wanted to make though is what you brought up about, you say you want to be 10-2 at the end of the year, but then it's how those two look that is what bother you the most. If you'd have taken any FSU baseball fan back in February and said, "Look, man, you were going to make Omaha and you're going to go 2-2 in Omaha," they'd be like, "Oh man, awesome." That's unbelievable. Okay, sign me up. Yeah. Well, wait till you blow a 3-run lead in the ninth of game one. Yep. Then ask me if you're signed up for that. So all of our perspectives change during the course of actually watching the games and how they play out. But yes, right now, if this team, having lost everything it just lost, can get to double-digit wins, man, that just means this program is established for the long haul, in my opinion.
And I don't want to pull wind out of that argument because I do agree with it, but I do wonder, 10-2, but then you lose the ACC championship game, so you're 10-3.
Yeah, then you're probably not making it.
Yeah. So that's another thing too as well.
But I mean, again, the point is, if you're 10-2 and you lose,
good problems.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And if you're 10-2 and you lose the ACC championship game to go 10-3, all right, you're probably not equipped to win the national championship, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to win 4 playoff games if you've lost 3 during the regular season and just lost a ACC championship game which is essentially serving as a playoff game in and of itself. The point being, you've given yourself a chance. You were in the conversation, and if you'd win that game in Charlotte as opposed to losing it, you are in the playoff. So that is a de facto playoff game. You have given yourself a chance to get to the national playoffs, and that's really, for me, this season, that's what you're looking for. Give yourself a chance to get in the dance, because that means after everything you've lost, and this is not a rebuilding year, but a retooling year, reshuffling year, for you to be able to still be that good, to be in that conversation, bodes well for the future.
Why didn't you say reloading?
I'm tired of reloading.
Okay.
But I guess you have reloaded. I don't know if you've reloaded with quite the caliber that you had. Reloading means that, that's like your same bullets.
And that's skipping
Same
a beat.
exact bullets. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true necessarily.
Yeah. So odds are, or what are the odds that Florida State is going to be in a rematch in the ACC championship game? If you look at Steele's projected finish of
Do
those,
Miami and Clemson play each other?
No, they do not.
Okay, all right.
So the top 10 teams in the ACC, you're one of them, Florida State, so that's 9 left of the top 10. You play 6 of those 9 teams. You play Clemson, you play Miami, you play SMU, you play North Carolina, you play Cal, you play Georgia Tech. So, I mean, it's like what? I don't know what
I thought you said Georgia Tech was like 10th or 11th.
They are. They're tied for 10th. So you talk about the 10 best teams like in the ACC. You're playing. Okay. You're one of them. So the other 9, you're playing 6 of those 9
Got
teams.
Got it. I see what you're saying.
So the chances that you're going to have a rematch in the ACC is astronomically high. So that's probably another thing too. Obviously when you beat Miami, boast and brag and make them feel horrible, but just realize that you're probably going to have to play them again or Clemson.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing of note from Phil Steele, Corey, people are wondering difficulty of schedule. It's not strength of schedule, but I guess just who has the toughest schedule in the country. The top 5, Houston 5, Georgia Tech 4, Southern Cal 3, which, by the way, can we do a quick ruling here? We will always and forever on this show moving forward, we will just say USC, and we will all know that we're talking about the school in California. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah, correct. South Carolina is the other school.
Yeah, we'll just call them South Carolina.
Yeah, that's what they're known as. Nobody calls them USC.
Yeah.
Come on.
Because apparently they don't like being called Southern Cal because it's like you're calling them almost like directional Berkeley. They're the Southern directional school in this.
It's
in
like,
the state.
Doesn't Central Florida not like being called something? They don't like to go. They go by UCF. They don't go by Central Florida.
I think maybe they don't
that?
like being called Central Florida.
Yeah, it's
maybe,
hey man, too bad. When do you get to make? You don't get to make the rules on what people call you. And Virginia Tech doesn't like being VaTech. I think it's like
really?
sorry. Yeah. That's how it works. That's how life works. Southern Cal is Southern Cal, and it's USC. Right. South Carolina will never be USC.
Yeah. All that said, USF beat Florida, and we'll figure out some way to give you a cool alternate nickname on top of that or whatever. So
right.
UCLA number 2, Florida number 1, most difficult schedule. Florida State checks in at 12th, Corey. So in Clemson,
yeah, it's a tough one.
Clemson's not on the list in terms of the top 25. Miami's not on that list either. So they might have paths that are favorable to getting back a shot at the Noles in Charlotte. So we'll see how it all shakes out. We'll see how your lunch goes. Hopefully it goes great. And if it's at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, I can say astronomically high odds that it's going to be fantastic. Half-pound, all-black Angus beef burger, side dish of your choice as well. The straight fries, the curly fries, the tater tots. It's all there for you. Only $8.99 from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. You're not boxing and just getting the lunch special, everybody. You can get anything you want any time of the day over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. It just won't be $8.99, but it's still going to be worth it, and it's going to be delicious. If you want to check out the menu before you roll up there, you can do that. cptallybar.com is a website. And then tomorrow, trivia night, 7 p.m. Corey, when's the last time you asserted your dominance as an alpha male at the Corner Pocket on a trivia night? I feel like it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. I think it's been like a month, and then I think we'll be there tomorrow to play trivia, but it's not a definite because 2 of our teammates are out of town in New Mexico, by the way.
Nice.
Which is crazy. Who goes to New Mexico? Good
Land
for
of
them.
enchantment.
That's probably a fun place. Yeah, the land of enchantment. Old Mexico, New Mexico, whatever you call it. But I think that that's an old joke. I'm going to explain it right now. I'll explain it after we're done with Corner Pocket. But I will probably be there on Tuesday. Not sure how dominant we're going to be, but we have fun. And the drinks are inexpensive. And the food is good. What else do you need?
There we go. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Let's talk recruiting right after this. Hey, everybody. It's Aslan, and it's Michael Langston, y'all. Let's go. Recruiting recap here, part of Wake Up Warchant, also standalone video. We could sit here and tell you about just how hard Michael Langston's been working, but hopefully you're a member and you realize that. If not, you're probably on YouTube, and you realize that as well because of all the interviews that are going out there. Michael, thanks for taking time out, man. Appreciate you. How are you?
No problem, man. Very, very chaotic weekend for sure. 19 official visitors, a lot of good positive momentum building. So a lot of stuff going on. I think they made a move on a lot of these kids, and we could spend an hour talking about these targets, but we're going to pick a few. But yeah, I think it was a really positive weekend for FSU.
All right, let's focus on the elite guys, because I think Florida State fans are confident that Mike Norvell can backfill the roster with some of the diamonds in the rough, but folks want the big dogs. Doesn't get much bigger than Josh Petty, 5-star offensive lineman, number 2 interior lineman according to On3, but he might have some tackle versatility there. 6'4", 265 out of Roswell, Georgia Fellowship Christian School. Michael, how real is the pursuit of Josh Petty, and what sort of ground did Florida State make in the pursuit of him?
I think it's very real, and it's been very real since he took a spring visit. Obviously, this visit was a little more just put the stamp on it as far as official visit, because you do so many things. Academics highlighted the players. I think really helped solidify kind of their position, which I think is number one for Josh Petty, and so I think they're trending in a good direction there. And I think the things Atkins and things he does with offensive linemen, and then too the offense. I think Josh really likes this offense. Resonates with it, loves certainly Coach Norvell. He's he even said in the interview that guy's ridiculous. Like I don't know how he does if he's on Red Bull or whatever, but there's certainly a attraction and a comfort that at FSU that feels fairly unique. And even going in the visit, I felt like FSU was in a good spot, but he'll decide in the summer. But I think things are trending in a good direction there.
Apparently, he's got some some relationship
Yes, yeah.
vibes also helping out Florida State right now.
Yeah, yeah. His sister is enrolled at FSU. She did a lot of recruiting. Josh said he said they're really close. So that's a big deal to him. Certainly that she's going there. They've been close. They haven't been away from each other that much. So I think the fact that she's going to FSU, and certainly she put her plug in today or throughout the weekend about certainly FSU. But I think it's more than just that. That's a nice edge and a nice angle. But I think there's so much more that I think that leads it to the comfort of FSU, and why I feel like my pick would sit on FSU at this point.
Awesome. That's incredible news, man. Um, there's that group of states, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, where I'm always a little bit skeptical and cynical when it comes to trying to pull players out of there, but I get you have to try. Texas, it's a big state, man. So there's some guys that are going to leave, but it's always hard to pull the top guys away, especially when they're on offense, and what Steve Sarkisian's been able to do out there. But Dalen McCutcheon, him getting on campus, just how important was that for Florida State? What kind of impression do you think they were able to make on this weekend?
Very important, and the one time where if you're going to get a Texas kid, you need to have the finalist that's not in Texas. And I think the team that I've heard the most that they're competing against is USC.
Mm.
So I think that's a positive development. Plus, too, just the way Dalen is around when he's at FSU. I mean, he's taken like 3 or 4 visits to FSU. That's like 10 hours. So he obviously covets FSU, and then he talks about unique feelings when he has at FSU. I think FSU feels good about their position. Obviously, he's going to make a sit down with his parents and family and decide kind of which one's the best. But I think FSU is the one that I have to go by. Feel one, intel and info that I'm getting, but two, just the body language of the way he talks about FSU seems to be very unique. So I do think at this hours we do this. I think FSU it has the momentum in this recruitment, and I've said that I felt like if I was going to pick a favorite, it would be them, just because of the factors I just mentioned. I think what they do with receivers is a big deal. It's not surprising that USC is the other team that we hear, because USC also does a good job of receivers. So I think Texas, you can't count them out. That's an in-state school that certainly is pushing. And there's other schools like Ohio State, but I really felt like from the start, not only did FSU covet Dalen, but Dalen coveted them. So I really felt like there was a unique relationship, and I really think that stands out to Dalen at this point with FSU.
That'd be a great pickup, man. And obviously there's enough reasons to come to Florida State and play in this offense. Hopefully McCutcheon's seeing the light. And listen, it's Lincoln Riley. You're not going to have a defense. You're not going to win a lot of games out there, probably. Just one man's opinion. Michael Langston, I was out in Nashville next year. Hopefully we'll tag team it up there, man. We'll take over Music City.
I'd love that.
And was able to speak to Tavion Wallace. And, at face value, I believe everything that kid told me. When I spoke to him in Nashville, he said Florida State's out in front. He was here this weekend. I don't know, though. You see a linebacker, you think about Florida State. He's from Georgia.
Yeah.
Can Florida State fans breathe any easier after Wallace was on campus this weekend on an official?
Well, I don't think any FSU breathes easy until one, they sign, but two, they commit. But I think they're in a great position. And the body language was again there, like it has been when I've seen with Tavion. We interviewed him. There was some clear things that he said that really screamed FSU. When you look at just the relationships, the connection that he has, the product on the field is, I think, a big deal with him. And the other team we had heard so much was more so Florida than Georgia. But I think most, just about all the intel I've got, it feels like this is FSU to lose. But it's like, man, the linebacker position, it's always one that makes you nervous. So you don't until you get that decision. But definitely everything coming out of it so far feels FSU. I think he's deciding on July 2nd. So that's coming up, pretty soon. But I think getting that last visit, and I don't think that was like by accident. I think he wanted to see FSU because the FSU's been the team that's the most on his mind. I think he has the best relationships with FSU. I think he sees the productivity of guys like Bethune and Deloach, and he sees that he could be a part of that. And I think he believes also in what Randy Shannon does with linebackers. I think that's a big part of this, of why I think FSU's positioned themselves the way they have.
We'll keep the fingers crossed. Wallace, 6'1" and a quarter, 216 pounds, out of Wayne County in Jessup, Georgia. Number 3 linebacker in the entire cycle, number 10 overall prospect out of Georgia, number 58 overall prospect in the country.
And a must add, man. Let's just call it what it is. That's a must add.
I like it. Absolutely. Because just right, the fact that the amount of times he's been on campus, what he said about this school, them leading. Yeah. And I know people are like, I don't care about summer commitments. Y'all need to change your mindset, right, Michael? Like, that's when kids are going to start committing is in the next 30 days or so. So
I get it. I get why people feel that way. I know KJ Bolden burned your soul and all that stuff. So I understand that, but you better get used to it. Kids are going to make summer decisions. Kids are also going to where you got to recruit them the whole year. You still got to go through the season and what you do on the field. And certainly if FSU does what we've seen, I don't think that's a problem. But that's just part of the process. This is step 1 of the process, and the step 2 of the process is the season.
Well said, Michael, per usual. Hey, how about more playmakers and an offense meant for playmakers? American Heritage High School, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 5'10" and a half, 205 pounds. That's what Byron Lewis stacks up as. Number 14 running back in this cycle, 4-star guy. We see Miami, Georgia on the sidebar, Wisconsin to a very lesser degree. Florida State, big lead on the RPM. Michael, do you agree with that after his appearance in Tallahassee this weekend?
I think the RPM is fairly accurate based on what we have. I do know, I can tell people, I do think FSU feels good about their position. They felt good going into it. I think they feel a little bit even better, coming out of it. A guy that they've targeted for a while, the ties are nonstop with Patrick Surtain being a former coach, and certainly his relationship with Coach Yak, that his built. And then 2, the thing that we don't probably talk about, and we should, is what FSU does with the rushing attack on the field. That's a big deal. When you're one of the best rushing teams in the country, and kids see that, that's an attractive thing to go along with your product on the field. So I think Miami's probably the biggest competition that I've heard. I know he took a visit to Georgia. They certainly put themselves in the picture, made a big impression. But I think overall it's been between FSU and Miami, and I think I still feel the way I did before, that I feel that FSU is the team that I think is the team that you feel like that is likely going to get good news, without just saying, hey, it's definitely going to happen. I think they sit in, the best spot. And the fact too that Byron didn't do a interview with the media, so that kind of tells me too, like, this one was really good. All the vibes tell me, and all the intel tells me, FSU is seemingly in a great spot there.
Do we have a decision date on Byron Lewis?
We do not have a date yet, but I believe it's sometime in July. I'm sure he'll come up with that soon now that he's done all the official visits. And this is another one that I feel like that it wasn't done by accident. FSU getting that last official visit. I think they've been in there for a long time. The relationship has only gotten stronger. It just took like 3 to 4, 5 visits to FSU, and like I said, there's a lot of ties there. And so far, we'll see where it's at, a day or two from now. But so far, I think FSU feels good about their position.
All right. How about one of his teammates? Let's go down and stay south. Another product of the American Heritage Pipeline that we're hoping Patrick Surtain's able to properly filter up this way. Gregory Zay Thomas, 6'2", 195-pound cornerback. That's some really solid measurables. 4-star according to the On3 consensus rankings. Number 29 cornerback. Huge lead for the Noles on the RPM machine there with Gregory Zay Thomas, 6'2", 195 again, Michael. How much of Patrick Surtain's presence do you think is factoring into those scales being tipped so nicely into Florida State's favor right now?
I think it's part of it, certainly a significant part, but there's a lot of different, parts. I think one of the main things too is that he just loves the way he feels when he's there. Not just what Surtain does with defensive backs or just what FSU does usage, whether it's a safety or corner. He did say that FSU's recruiting him as a corner, so they that was interesting because he plays a lot of positions, so you know where he's going to line up. Kind of almost Jalen Ramsey like, of just you can put him anywhere on the field in that secondary and you feel comfortable. But I think they've been the strong leader for a while. It's like if there's any prospect that's visiting this weekend, this was probably the one that you feel the strongest. That FSU, it's likely going to be FSU. Even said lately that it was Clemson and Florida State as his top 2 teams. I think he tweeted that, and then also had something announcing on, I think, July 2nd. So that's a guy that it could be sooner than that. I could be wrong on the date, so don't quote me on that. But either way, it's coming up soon. This was the last visit, and just when he talks about FSU, there's a lot of smiling. There's a lot of different things. So there's a personal connection, and he has parts Seminole Indian heritage in his bloodline. So that doesn't hurt that he's a Seminole inside for as far as being a Native American Seminole. So I think you add all these things together, it's going to be hard for me to see him not picking anybody but FSU.
All right. Florida State fans are going to appreciate hearing that from you, Michael. Wasn't able to find a decision date on him, but Tavion Wallace, I think we've got on July 2nd.
Okay.
And I think you might have said that as much. So just wanted to go back on that. But again, 19 official visitors, Michael, and we spoke about 5 of the 19. So maybe some people are going to connect dots and think those are like the 5, maybe most likely. Is that fair to say? I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Michael, but again, we have limited time. We don't want to give everything away out because it's all over there on the PRB, but some of these are names that I picked out, but obviously you had some input as well about who you wanted to speak about.
Yeah, I think those are some of the ones that we feel good about, or they have a strong chance at. But there's others that I also feel in that area. We just can't cover everybody. I think Kevin Wynn's one to definitely watch out for next week. I really like where FSU's positioned himself. 4-star defensive tackle out of Georgia. I know they really like him a lot. Myron Charles, another one. They hit that. Everyone's probably going. Probably Odell, if he could post on the message where you say, hey, how you like me now? Odell, if he gets both of those. So I think you really solidify that position. So I think, there's more in there, guys, but these are just some of the top ones we want to highlight in this feature. But I think overall, Aslan, just a great weekend for FSU. I think they really knocked it out of the park with this visit. The way they made it personal was different, in a few ways of the other official visits. And I think they just made it at home. And then, 2, just having Trammell out there recruiting other guys certainly helped.
Man, I want to let you go, but I got two other questions for you.
Okay.
Mike, one of them's kind of quick. I think we're going to hit like how long of a month, like a month long quiet period or silent or dead period here in another week or so. Is that true?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe it lasts until the end of July, which is, I want to say, the 25th, something like that. And then there's a short period, maybe 3 to 5 days, where you can host an event. FSU could host a Seminole showcase or elite camp. That could happen, barbecue, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of what they did last year. We dealt with. So outside of that, Aslan, I think we're pretty much done. Like outside of that event or that weekend, I think that's pretty much it until the season starts. Because I think then you'll hit a full dead period. So that's my understanding.
Yeah, looks like what we got here. It says June 24th to July 24th, dead period.
Yeah.
Quiet period overlap comes afterwards,
Yeah.
July 25th to the 31st. So,
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I should probably ask you what you're going to do for vacation, but I won't do that. You can keep that sort of stuff to yourself. But last thing on the way out, Michael, just, obviously they've hosted so many. I mean, they made this like a huge weekend because it's right before a dead period. They brought as many guys as they could on here to kind of make an impact. When things don't work out, when guys come here and it turns out to not lead to a commitment, obviously no one's committed. Do you think those guys usually have their minds made up, or do you think they arrive here and for whatever reason, maybe things just don't line up in their vision, and that's what leads to them, either not talking to you guys or saying really great things about the program in interviews afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these guys have an idea of where they're going. I think, it's kind of with the Smigel kid that came over, 2026 quarterback that they landed. I think he was like he knew like, hey, there's a chance I could commit if I see what I need to see. And I think that's with where they're at. And I think that's why they orchestrated this, last weekend visit for a lot of these top targets that they felt they're in a good position for. And then there's some in there, they're kind of 50-50 that they could land that we haven't all discussed everybody. So I think it's an orchestrated thing, but there's no guarantee either. You still have to do the work. And I think they did a phenomenal job. I know I can tell you this, guys, the staff is pretty giddy about how I feel like from my contacts that the staff is pretty giddy about how this went and excited about how it was executed. And it doesn't always go that way. So it's not like to say that, hey, it always goes that way. But I guess when you put enough planning and organization into it, sometimes the stars align, you get what you wanted. And I think for FSU, I don't think there was anything that was off a hitch that they didn't feel like they didn't nail on these trips and with a lot of these guys. And we haven't even talked about, majority of these other ones, that are either 50-50 or maybe FSU's a dark horse. So I think overall they accomplished what they wanted.
Awesome, man. We accomplished what we want. We got Michael Langston on the show to give you folks a very thorough, comprehensive recap of the weekend that was in recruiting. Michael, thanks so much, man. I think we'll probably talk maybe once or twice. Actually, hopefully, I do want to talk to you, Michael, but just go sleep, have a vacation for the next 30 days, man. Enjoy yourself, man. Thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it as always.
You got it, man. And we'll have a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of interviews, a lot of features, a lot of different things. Might even do a 10 to watch, more after this big weekend. So certainly ramp up. I think July is going to be a busy month for FSU. So just stay tuned to Warchant. We'll have a lot more coming up.
Yeah, just because it's a dead period doesn't mean these kids can't commit, which they're going to be making their commitments in July, right? So
you got it.
Stay connected to warchant.com. Michael's got you covered. Michael Langston, everybody, recruiting analyst for warchant.com. So you got all that information for free from the recruiting guys, which you really should have to pay for over the PRB, but we allowed that to happen. But you've hung in long enough and are on the edge of your seats for the clarification of the Nuevo, New Mexico, Old Mexico joke, Corey. I'm not even familiar with it. Blow my mind.
Well, no, it's not a joke. It's what happened. So when Atlanta was hosting the Olympics in the summer of '96, this somehow became I don't think it was a national story, but it made the AJC. The New Mexico delegation called whoever the main ticket broker was for the Atlanta Olympics that handled the states. Because, there was an international one, obviously, for dignitaries coming in from across the world, around the world. But there are also ones for all 50. There were liaisons for all 50 states. In the delegation from New Mexico, I think maybe calling for the governor, I can't remember, called this ticket office. And look, I'm from Atlanta. I love Atlanta. Georgia's a great state. I public education in Georgia. This is not a great look for my home state. But anyway, they call. I think it was a lady, but I don't know why I'm assuming that. I think it was. But the delegate from New Mexico is like, hey, let's just say I want 10 tickets to the track and field event on Saturday. And the lady's like, okay, what state are you with? And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm with the New Mexico delegation. And she goes, no, we do states, not countries. And he goes, no, I said New Mexico. And she goes, New Mexico, Old Mexico, whatever you want to call it, I only do states. And that was the story that was in the HAC that my dad relayed to me as he laughed. Being from Scranton, Pennsylvania, he laughed at the Georgia public school education. But, hey, his son's a product of it, and now his grandson is a product of it.
Old Scranton John. Love that guy.
Yep.
Low key, like if that happened in this day and age, I feel like it would, poor lady would get a beating on the internet for a minute or two, but then it'd be like some kind of funny tourist opportunity for New Mexico to like fly her and her family out and show her how cool New Mexico is, and then she'd like post all these photos and be like, I love it here, it's amazing.
Yeah. I love both versions. I love both Mexicos.
Yeah.
New and old. So Billy the Kid, that's where he did all his gunfighting was in New Mexico.
There we go. I don't know what would have to happen. So the 4 bowl games that are going to host quarterfinals, which are, if you're a team that is one of the top 4 conference champions, you'll have a bye. You'll play in these bowl games. It's going to be the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Peach Bowl, and yes, the Tostitos. Well, it's the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Now, it'll always be the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl to me, Josh.
You and Brett Musburger.
Yeah. So there's a possibility that I don't know, like if obviously Georgia's one of the teams.
What are the 4? What are the 4 again? The Fiesta Bowl
Sugar,
and then what are the other
Sugar
3?
and Peach. So that Florida State's going to probably end up in one of those.
All right, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Well, if you get a bye though, if Florida State wins the ACC, they're not getting sent to Pasadena. I'm trying to think if there's any way we could get sent to Arizona. That way we could actually stop in New Mexico and hang out, because I do want to visit New Mexico. It's on the bucket list. Not necessarily the bucket list, but like the to-do list. But yeah, it's a Peach, Rose, Sugar, Fiesta. And then the semifinals would be Miami or Dallas, Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl.
Okay, all right. So yeah, hopefully Florida State would be sent to Peach or Sugar. I would vote for the Sugar, which means they would probably go to Arizona.
Yeah. Well, no. So it does say that bowls and will be done. The 4 highest ranked conference champions will go to the quarterfinals, hosted by bowls. This will be done in consideration of historic bowl relationships, then in consideration of rankings. So, for example, if Sugar Bowl hosts a playoff quarterfinal and the SEC champion is ranked number 1 and the Big 12 champion is ranked number 3, the SEC champion would be assigned to the Sugar Bowl. Big 12 champion would be assigned elsewhere. So it feels like whoever wins the ACC
would probably be at the Peach?
No, would be the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, I thought
because there's a longer standing relationship between the Sugar Bowl and the SEC than there is the Peach Bowl and the SEC. But I don't know, maybe
no,
Kirby
I said the ACC. Whoever wins the ACC is probably going to the Peach Bowl.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Well, I mean, that's cool. At least I wouldn't have to go buy a hotel, but it'd be a lot cooler if it was New Orleans. Is all I'm saying.
All right. We'll see how that goes. Hey, we're not done talking about baseball yet, everybody. So hope you haven't moved on too far from it. So Florida State got a commitment over the weekend, Corey, from a center fielder, Gage Harrelson out of Texas Tech. So this is now 4, as of this recording of this program, that they've gotten locked up here. They've got Evan Crest from Jacksonville, as well as Peyton Prescott, and then Joey.
Who are they? Are they pitchers, right?
Yes, as well as Joey Vellini, who's also an arm from South Florida, or USF. USF.
Yeah, right.
Go Bulls. Harrelson, tale of 2 halves, his career so far, 2 years out there in Lubbock. Really good program. Tim Tadlock and Texas Tech. They kind of been an Omaha mainstay for a little bit, but I think they haven't made the last few years. But his freshman year, real good numbers, Corey. He started in 57 games, batted .324, 404 OBP, bunch of stolen bases too. Or actually had more stolen bases this past season, but he dropped.
What does that mean? What's a bunch?
19 for 19 this past year.
Okay, all right.
But his batting average dropped nearly 100 points. He batted .245 this past year, 40 strikeouts, 28 walks, .311 slugging. Did tick up, though, in his OBP from .404 to .411. I'll trust Link Jarrett on all personnel matters. What do you think that says maybe about the future? Obviously, that probably dictates kind of where Max Williams fits into next year.
Yeah, I think this kid's a center fielder. You wonder, though, like, look, man, Diamez Ross theoretically is a better center fielder than Max Williams, but Link wanted the offense. And so Link decided, okay, what I might lose in speed and athleticism out in the outfield, and Max can run. He's not a slow kid at all. He's just not maybe Diamez. I'm willing to lose if it means I've got that Thunder bat at the top of my lineup. It seems like, to me, just looking at it from my point of view, you've got another Diamez Ross type kid. I feel like he'll make some contact. He can run. I think he's a plus defender. But in college baseball in 2025, where does he fit in the lineup? Is he your number 9 hitter? Because if he's your number 9 hitter, but he's like a Gold Glove caliber center fielder, by all means, go for it. Then you put Max in left or Max in right, whichever he wants to play, and you go from there. But, you're going from an outfield that had James. So with Max Williams, James Tibbs, and Ferrer, that's an outfield that hit 65 home runs and drove in 250.
Yeah,
So you're trying to replicate that. Now you get Max Williams back, but in my opinion, you'd like to get a bat more closely resembling Ferrer or Tibbs and not Diamez Ross. But maybe he's trying to think this team, because of the arms he expects to have, you need to be better defensively. You need to go get balls in the gap a little bit better than maybe this outfield did this past season. So I don't know. It's good. It's interesting. It's an interesting pickup because I thought they'd be going after guys like, quite frankly, that had numbers like Farrow and Lodi's, like 12, 14 homer. There are 14 homer guys all over this country.
Right.
And to go like one of your first pulls that you get is a kid that hit 3 in his career, right? Something like that.
I mean, he
slugged 311.
311 this past year, 441 as a freshman.
Yeah, but so he's not a power guy.
Correct.
I just would have thought they'd be more of you prone to go get some power. But again, I don't know if he's your lead. I doubt he's your leadoff hitter. You don't want a guy like that getting more at bats than anybody else on your team. But if he's your number 9 hitter and plays great defense, then I don't think that's I think that certainly can play. And he might have a really good year. If he can get on base 40% of the time, that's a big deal.
I just wonder where that – I mean, I think it kind of leaves
you
Diamez
think that
probably out in the dark.
Probably, but yes, I would think so, because you're not going to have 2 of those players starting. But I wonder, what does that mean? I was thinking, okay, what does that mean as far as who they're hearing back from? Who's interested in them? Why pull the trigger on this so quickly? Unless this guy knows the deal and he knows bigger names are coming, he's fine with it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't want this particular portal commitment to scare off a potential all-conference kid from coming.
That's the thing,
because
he wouldn't.
He's not going to be able to play center field. Well, unless the kid's a center fielder.
But why wouldn't this kid play another corner spot and then you?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Because I mean, you're losing Tibbs and you're losing Ferrer. And we don't think Diamez is in the mix, so that you only have Max Williams right now in your outfield, and then this Gage Harrelson guy's the second guy, so you still need that third piece to fill in there.
Gage, by the way, Gage is a real popular name these days.
Yeah, it is.
Gage. You like it?
No, I mean, I don't dislike it. I like Brady.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, we never thought of Gage. Gage never came up. I think it was always going to be a B. It was going to be Brady or Brody or Braden. And we rolled with Brady. But yeah, there's he has
two
a
of
kid
my
on
buddies,
his team named Gage.
Two of my buddies one of my buddies got a Brody, one of my buddies got a Braden. So all bases
not a lot
covered.
of Michaels anymore.
No Ryans, no Michaels.
Yeah.
No Iras. It's
Ira's a dying name for sure.
Terrible. There's some smoke as well, Corey. What do you think this means? There's some smoke. I don't want to call it billowing, but there's some smoke leaking out there through the roof. ECU left-handed pitcher Zach Root is, according to On3, the number 2 available guy in the portal. Left-handed pitcher, 13 appearances, 12 starts, went 6-2 for East Carolina this past year, 68 innings, 76 punch-outs, 21 walks, 3.56 ERA. Teams batted .228 against him.
Okay.
If
bring him. Get him. Go get him.
He's from Fort Myers, so maybe there's some alignment there. What does that mean? Does that mean is Link just out for blood? Should we not look into starting pitchers' roles when we see him acquiring talent? And when it comes to arms, because it just seems like everything he said after the losses out there in Omaha was like, I need a plethora of dynamic options out of the bullpen. I do not have that right now. So is that the way we should look, the prism we should look at through anybody that's acquired pitching-wise?
Yeah, man, I think the trend moving forward, look, man, A&M played in the World Series Championship Series on Sunday in Game 2 with a 1-0 lead, and they started a kid who had pitched like 14 innings all year. He started Game 2, not Game 3, not Game 9, Game 2 of the Championship Series in Omaha. They just wanted a few outs until they got to their real guy coming out of the pen. They want him to Cortez. They want him to go as long as he can, but they want to save him some outs instead of starting him. Let him come in the second or the third. I just think that's the direction of the future. I don't know. Let's say this kid from ECU does come to Florida State. I don't think he's necessarily come in to be a Saturday starter or a Sunday starter. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be like, hey, any of y'all can start. Not any of y'all, but we'll get 5 or 7 outs from whoever we need to get to. This guy is going to be from the 3rd inning to our 8th inning, from the 3rd inning to the 7th inning, especially if he's pitching well, and especially in the postseason. Like, you get one of these postseason arms, ride them.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one way that Florida State wasn't built to win a championship this year, is they didn't really have a guy. Oxford was the closest thing. They didn't really have a guy that you could say, all right, in the 3rd, like Florida had with Neely, like A&M had with the Cortez kid, like
Ashen, whatever his name is, that kid he threw for them on Saturdays a freaking stud, man.
And then Tennessee had the Beam kid that's going to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and he pitched really well on Sunday. They didn't have anything like that. That's what you need to not just get to Omaha, to probably win it. I think that's what Link's looking at, is I need to have an arm or 2 or 4 that I can pull out of that bullpen and ride them through the middle innings until it gets late, give my offense a chance to give me a 3 or 4 run lead. He also needs some sort of closer. Now, in college baseball, closers aren't like they are in the major leagues. You're not just asking your closer to get 3 outs typically, especially when the games really matter. They're getting you 6 outs, or they're getting you 9 outs. They're like the Neely kid from Florida. They're closing the game. But he didn't have any real options like that. Now he's trying to give himself. He knows he's got Arnold coming back. We don't know about Leiter. Don't really know about Dorsey. But you know, if those three, if you have those 3 intact, and that's an if, we don't know if that's happening, to go along with the arms they've already added, and maybe a kid from ECU or something, that is a dynamic staff, man. You're not going into a series thinking, golly, I hope Holtz's curveball is working, or I hope he can locate his fastball, or man, I hope Abraham or Charles can throw strikes. It's going to be like, no, we're going to shove this guy up your butt for 4 innings. Then on Sunday, we're going to shove that guy for 4 innings. Good luck. He'll know what he's going to have. So that's a real nice luxury.
I just think with, them having 4 guys so far, and they're not showing any signs of relenting, and 3 of them obviously being pitchers, and then maybe this Root kid is another guy. Like, speaking to somebody this weekend that's in that orbit of the baseball program, it just seems like anybody that we have been talking about like the last week of like being on the fence, it sounds like the feeling is that those guys are probably gone. Like, like even a Dorsey at this point. Like Whitaker's a guy that might be done playing college baseball and just, you know.
Oh, you mean gone as in like to the draft?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you meant like there's no room for a Connor Holtz on this program, even if he wants to come back, or there's no room for a Joe Charles. I don't think that's true.
No,
but
Joe Charles, he's still got eligibility. I don't know if Holtz
no,
got
but I mean, like
too.
even if Diamez has eligibility left, he might not be.
Right,
they might not have a spot for him, or they might, kind of suggest that maybe he should look elsewhere. That's going to happen. I think that can happen with almost every pitcher on the bullpen, even though they had some great moments.
Right.
By and large, it wasn't good enough. Not by and large, the bullpen as a whole for 70 games this year wasn't good enough. You didn't know what you were going to get out of those guys. That was my point a couple minutes ago. Holtz could be great, like he was in their 3rd game out in Omaha. He was terrific.
Yeah, against
the
Carolina.
Best he looked all year. He was awesome. But that's not who you got all year. And
that's not who you got on Friday night.
Well, yeah, for those 2 pitches. But you're right. That's not who they got. They don't know who they're getting. Same with Charles. Like Joe Charles was pretty darn good against Tennessee. He got some luck with some hard outs. But he was pretty darn good. I think he gave up 1 run in 4 innings, 1 earned run. But, there was also games where he couldn't throw strikes and he got lit up. And it was just and his ERA reflected that. Like his ERA was in the 6s. That's where he needs, Link's looking for ERAs under 4. And in college baseball, that's easier said than done. Like the average ERA is very, very high in college baseball these days. It is back to being an offensive sport, but you can't be rolling in with your season on the line, having to turn to a guy that has a 6.8 ERA or a 7.1 ERA. That's not feasible to try to win this thing. And Link, sole purpose in life right now is to win in Omaha.
Yep. All right, well said. Strong
Thanks,
Monday show. Touched all the bases, literally, figuratively. Jeff Cameron show 1 to 3 o'clock, I'd assume.
I'll let people know if I find my glasses.
Please, yeah. So what's like you just did? I guess the water's too murky out there to even like.
Yes, yeah, and like I did, glasses obviously sink, but I think if I would have, and also people die in Lake Lanier all the time, so I didn't want to risk it. But as soon as she said your glasses, if I would have believed her, I'd have been like, I within that second, I could have dove down and like swung I wouldn't have been able to see anything, but I could have swung my arms and legs around to see if I felt it.
So she thought you just ignored her because she said it when you jumped in, and then when you came out the water, like you acted like nothing was wrong.
I didn't hear her say it.
I know, but you didn't hear her say it, but she thinks that you just ignored her.
Right, correct. Yeah, she thought I just jumped in, hearing her, and then was like, "Whatever, they're just glasses." Yeah. But no, when I came up head above water, she said, "Babe, your glasses," and I'm like, "What about them?" If she had said it right then, and I would have been like, "Oh no, I was wearing them," and I dove right back down, like to try to get to 8 to 10 feet down, and just started swinging like a wild person right below me. Maybe I feel them. Maybe they touch against my arm, and I grab them that way. But otherwise, I just sacrifice them to the gods of Lake Lanier.
I think this is a good opportunity to reinvent yourself once again, Corey. There's so many cool, and I know it's all about what the wife wants, but like I think you can pull off some really cool, funky looking glasses that will give you like your own brand almost. Like it's gonna there's gonna be a
like
certain
goggles.
No, not that silly.
Oh, okay, all right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'll throw it out there. I'll put in the group message with you and Steph and be like, hey, how about some of these? And I'll let you guys pick it out or whatever. But
like Rick Vaughn, like maybe a skull and crossbones.
Sure.
In the middle. Okay. All right. I see you, Aslan. You're right.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to assume the Jeff Cameron show 1 to 3 o'clock. Are you guys going to do headlines this week?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. That'll be Tuesday. And I know you guys have a big, deep desire, thirst, a hunger for recruiting news. It's all there over on the PRB, Premium Recruiting Board, warchant.com. Subscribe. FSU 1, 2 months of access for only $1 American dollar. He's Corey Mazal. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.